Language can portray all kinds of emotions, but what makes certain words hateful? Everyday inappropriate words appear in rap lyrics and comedy routines. The fallout from Don Imus has sparked a national debate about hateful words in our language. Has society become desensitized towards certain words or just irresponsible? For the next few minutes, you may hear words that are inappropriate, but in fact relevant to the story. So do please bear with us as we delve a little deeper into the subject. Joining us now from Chicago is Temple University professor Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. He teaches urban education and American studies and writes a bi-weekly column called The Barbershop Notebooks. Good morning, Dr. Hill. How are you?
Pleasure's all mine.
Listen, when you look at the bigger picture here, what Imus said was wrong. But what makes his remarks different from what's in some of the popular rap songs that we hear? Songs that in many cases are written and sung by blacks who swing the N-word around like it's nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, someone said the text without context is a pretext. Whenever we hear words, whenever we hear phrases, whenever we hear expressions, we always have to situate them within a particular context. On the one hand, it's very important to acknowledge that what rappers are saying in these songs, using the B word, the N word, all of these things, they're highly problematic. They're wrong. They're offensive no matter who utters these words. But at the same time, there is an extraordinary difference between someone like Don Imus saying a particular type of word in public and Jay-Z or Nas or Biggie Smalls or someone else making a similar utterance. The reason is because issues of power are often attached to issues of race. The person who says it often has a particular positionality in society based on who and what they are. So a man using the B word is very different than a woman using the B word. A black person saying the N word is very different than a white person using that word. I'm not saying that anyone should use it, but there is a context that we have to take quite seriously when we're talking about these matters.
That's an interesting take on it. Do you think we as a society have become desensitized towards certain words? I know shows like Jerry Springer sort of glorify the perception of what some might call trailer trash.
Oh, absolutely. And we could add Roseanne to the list as well. You know, we could add Jeff Foxworthy to the list when we talk about the notion of the redneck. We could look at Lil' Kim and many people with the notion of the B word. And certainly we could look to rap for the N word. Whenever you have a word that is mainstream, that is proliferated throughout society through newspapers, magazines, movies, and music and such, it makes it easier to see it as something that is harmless. And particularly when the aggrieved party, when the people who have been the victims of that word begin to use the word in public space in all kinds of complicated and nuanced and sometimes redemptive fashion, that makes the conversation a lot more complicated too, because now you're saying, well, these people are saying it, and if they're saying it, why can't I?
Can you give us an idea, Dr. Hill, of what types of words we've become desensitized to? You know, words that are inappropriate. We hear them in songs or comedy routines all the time. I know MTV made the word pimp acceptable. Roseanne made the word white trash or the phrase white trash acceptable.
Oh, those are excellent examples. You know, 10 years ago, if you were to call someone white trash, those would be fighting words. Sometimes they still are, but many times it's seen as playful. We could also look at the word hoe. Although Don Imus certainly racialized the term by saying nappy-headed hoe, the word hoe is used all the time, sometimes playfully, sometimes by women themselves, and sometimes men towards women in ostensibly a respectful fashion or playful fashion. Now, I would argue that it's always disrespectful to call someone a hoe, but it's now used in ways that aren't seen as disrespectful by certain people. The B word is another example. Many people call themselves B. Lil' Kim called herself the Queen Bee, except She didn't say B. You know, that type of thing is often what oppressed people do. And also, essentially what they're doing is appropriating the language of abuse and trying to fashion it into something redemptive.
You know, really quickly, how do you know when we or someone like Imus crosses the line? Because sometimes that line seems a little blurred. What's the standard?
Well, I would argue, you know, calling someone a nappy-headed hoe is never that blurry. But one thing to do is let the people who are the victims of that word use it. That way there's no confusion. If those girls in the Rutgers team call themselves nappy-headed hoes, which they wouldn't, let them. But you don't do it. You know, I don't use the B word. You know, I hope white people don't use the N word. And then hopefully we can develop enough self-pride where we don't want to call ourselves those things either.
Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, thank you so much from Temple University and joining us live from Chicago. We appreciate it today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Always my pleasure.
Interesting insight. All right.